Some of the things that these polyphenols do, Eric.
These polyphenols can help you have more energy, and polyphenols are great for athletes.
It sounds like it's going to help a whole lot more people than just bloating. Go to lovemytummy.com/Spoony.
Welcome back, Spoony listeners. Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro. Yes, I had a couple of days off. Had some real work to do. This is the fun stuff. Board meetings, paying bills. Yeah, not so fun. Notice I didn't make time to get a haircut, though, so you can see me in all my glorious... I need a haircut. Let's just say it that way. All right. Hey, if you haven't heard... we have a very special guest today. Should be calling in any moment. We have Robert Mansfield, and Robert was the steak category winner for the World Food Championships Steak Cook-Off Invitational this last fall, actually early winter. And if you don't know what the WFC is, the World Food Championships, we're going to get into that a little bit. They were founded by Mike McLeod, but stay tuned. It's guaranteed to be a very good interview. Now, above and beyond that, you know what? It's National Pig in a Blanket Day. Who doesn't love a pig in a blanket? Better known in Texas as a kolache. I can't think of any other names, but kolache, pig in a blanket. Anyway, it's dough wrapped around a sausage, or in my family, it was a hot dog because that's what we had. But you ever made those at home? They're really fun to make with your children. Now, as an adult, it's even fun. You buy some crescent rolls, pop the can, wrap it around a preferably sausage. It's much better than if you do it with a hot dog. If you do it with a hot dog, at least use 100% all beef hot dog. Nothing wrong with the other stuff. It's just a preference for me. I tend to, okay, well, maybe not. Nathan's Famous is my favorite hot dog. If you're going to buy a package of hot dogs, that or the Hebrew Nationals. But I digress. You take the hot dog, remove it from the package. If it's a sausage, you take the same sausage out of the package, pre-cooked, mind you. Wrap it with one of the crescent rolls, and then you bake them in the oven. I don't know, follow the directions. Whatever the crescent roll says, go about 10 degrees lower. It's usually around 400 to 425. So you're going to go like 375, 390, somewhere in that range. Bake it for probably 12 minutes. The meat in the middle is already cooked. Just have to bake the crescent roll until it's golden brown. There are lots of recipes out there. I'll put one up on Spoony Radio's Facebook page here in a few minutes. But, that made me think. When I was a child, I've never been a goat. I've eaten a lot of goat, but I've never been a goat. When I was a child, my mother baked every single day. And when I say bake, I don't mean she bought a package of Pillsbury biscuits or Pillsbury crescent rolls. No, there's nothing wrong with that. But she baked from scratch every day. And I thought about why. And it was pretty apparent. My dad demanded fresh bread and a fresh baked dessert every day. Every day. I mean, that's a lot of baking when you think about it. That man was not a big man. He was 5'7", probably 5'6.5". But he would take a half of a pineapple upside down cake, 2 to 3 sandwiches, whatever snacks he wanted on top of that, to work every day. And he would finish every bite. Then he'd come home from work and he would eat the rest of the cake after dinner. At which he had whatever meat, potatoes, and vegetables were on the plate. And there's always that's not true, almost always a protein. But my mother baked from scratch every day, except in the summertime when in upstate New York, we had no air conditioning in the home. We had like this, I don't know what you call it. It's you were able to reverse the fan on your central heating and cooling unit. It wasn't a cooling, it was just a heat unit. So what happened essentially is that you drew in air from the attic or through the vents at the top of the house, and it blew out the windows. Or you could just turn it on. It would act as usual. It would suck air in and blow it out the top. But either way, you got cold air in the home. It was fantastic, except during the daytime because it didn't work. It didn't matter. It was so warm, so humid. And if you don't think upstate New York is humid, go to Saratoga Springs for the racetrack season at Saratoga Downs. Go for the Travers Cup, whatever you want to go for. It's hot. It's humid. Let's just say they sell a lot more than a few mint juleps all summer long. So anyway, I digress. In the summertime, my mother wouldn't bake. She would make very simple desserts. She was a great cook, a great baker. But when it came to desserts, in the summertime, we did this really cool thing. And I've talked about this before, I'm sure. I tried to convince Matt Locke it's okay to eat tomatoes. He says, no, it's not. I said, yes, it is. Put a little of this on his. No, it's not. But my mother would take just ripened tomatoes off the vine about an hour before dinner, maybe an hour and a half, bring them in the house and let them cool in the window. And then she would slice them a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. And, we'd eat some for dinner. She would pickle some. You can make quick pickles, basically sliced cucumbers, sliced tomatoes, maybe some onion. And you take a vinegar, a touch of sugar, some salt, black pepper, and you marinate that in the fridge for maybe an hour. Quick pickles, right? But she would take the tomatoes, and we had these big, giant beefsteak tomatoes that were so ripe. If you every time you touched them, you thought you were going to bruise them. They were so sweet and juicy, but they always had that acidic aftertaste to them. So my mother, as a quick, simple dessert, would actually slice the tomatoes thick and then sprinkle sugar on them. And lo and behold, it actually was pretty darn good. You think about if you make a tomato sauce, a spaghetti sauce, a pasta sauce, almost always there's a touch of sugar in it. It kind of counteracts the acid. It gives a balance to the dish. It's something we don't think about. It's like, oh, this food is salty, or oh, this food is sweet. I had dinner somewhere not too long ago, and I ordered a dish that has a sauce on it. It was a big chop of some sort. That may have been longer, further back than I remember. But when the dish came out, I can handle a lot of salt. I don't like a lot of salt, but I can handle it. But when I tried that dish, it was so salty I had to send it back and ask for something else. The next dish came out. It was a replacement. I ordered something completely different, and it was almost too salty. And the comment was, well, yeah, I'm sorry. We're a little heavy-handed with the salt here. So, our cooks are just, I'm sorry. No, if you have to repeatedly say that you're heavy-handed with the salt, how about testing the flavor profile? Taste the dish. Every time a sauce goes out, you taste it. Every time something that's stewed, braised, roasted comes out of the oven, you taste it. That way, you know if you need to adjust the salt for what accompanies it, whether it's the sides or the sauce or whatever it happens to be. But this balance, right? This balance can be very simple, and that's what my mother achieved with this little bit of sugar on a nice, thick, room temperature slice of tomato. It was amazing. It was one of my favorite things to have in summertime. That and what we called milk toast, but we won't go into that. Okay, we will. It was actually toasted bread, or not even toasted white bread, and you just broke it up in a bowl or in a glass. In a glass, it was usually cornbread. In a bowl, we would put regular bread or toast. And then you poured milk on it, and you sprinkled the whole thing with sugar. I know. It's like sugar, bread, milk. Yes, it's like berries and cream, right? It's very simple. It's country food. It's peasant food. It's what I grew up on. But that balance is necessary. You had the richness from the milk. We always had whole milk. It actually came from my grandfather's dairy, less than a mile up the road. The bread was baked by my mother. And, the sugar, well, we didn't grow the cane and make the sugar, but I'm sure my father could have figured that out. It's just a little cold to grow cane in upstate New York. So I'm going to go ahead and text our caller and make sure he has our number because you know what? You never know. So, again, Robert Mansfield, he is the current reigning WFC world champion. That's the World Food Championship world champion for the Steak Invitational Cook-Off. And here's the cool thing. Coming up in about a week and a half, there are 10 categories in the WFC. All 10 of these winners go head-to-head to choose the World Food Champion. Now you're like, World Food Champion. No, that's a big deal. There are 2,000 plus events that lead into one final table event. And that's what the final event, I believe it's for 3 or 4 days long. It's called Final Table. 10 participants. We'll go into the details of exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. As a matter of fact, they're holding it in New Orleans this year. And if you've never been to New Orleans, it is an amazing mecca for food. Drop your phone, pick your phone up, make a reservation, and go. And if you can get down there for the WFC, you can go to worldfoodchampionships.com. I believe it's worldfoodchampionships.com. You can go to their Facebook page, which is the World Food Championships. Check them out. There's a link to buy tickets. I highly recommend. This is a closed event. So it's not like you just walk in and see what's going on. It's a closed event. So definitely reach out, see if there are tickets available. And if you make it, man, that's awesome. Okay, so as this is the first course, better known as the appetizer course for the day, because we have a 4-course meal every day right here on Spoony Radio on the Food Biz Pro Show. I don't even know the name of my show. Jeff's laughing back there. He's like, "You've been off the air 4 days and you can't remember the name of your show?" Yeah, I can't. I've slept since then, okay? Or I haven't slept since then. I'm not sure. But it's a 2-hour show. Each half hour is 1 course. So today, I know we're going to talk about steak once Robert calls in. And you know what? He may be a time zone thing. So yes, he's calling from New Jersey. Yes. Oh, hey. Cool. That's it. All right. No texts. Hey, Robert, you on the phone?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Awesome, man. Hey, we've never met, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So look, I've been talking a little about the WFC and Mike McLeod. I didn't talk too much about Mike because this show's about you, but I have to say, this is the 8th or 9th year of the WFC events, and it's grown from this. Like a small local event that kind of grew and grew and grew. And now it's crazy. Over 2,000 events. And now I heard that it's going to grow bigger. I can't really let the cat out of the bag. But hopefully Mike will come on the show and let us all, inform us all on what's going to happen in the future. But how did you, man, you are the world, the current reigning world steak champion, cook, chef, presenter. How does that feel, man? We got a check for $10,000.
Yeah, it was pretty surrealistic, I have to say. I kind of went into that event as a pretty much a rookie in the steak world. I'm pretty much coming from a barbecue competitor stance, so I'm used to competition, but steak is kind of a new thing here in the Northeast. I'm based out of New Jersey. So, it's kind of a new thing, and I kind of went to the World Foods not so high expectations. I know how to cook a steak, and I've done well, and, I was pretty confident getting past the initial rounds, but, yeah, that top 10 kitchen arena scenario is definitely something new for me.
Well, let's step back now. Let's step back a little bit because you've had some successes before in steak. Am I incorrect on that? And look, folks, I don't have any real special magic powers. Robert may have told me that he had some success in the past.
There was probably about 4 or 5 years ago at one of the bigger barbecue competitions here at Atlantic City in New Jersey. Smoke on the Water production. They had an unsanctioned steak competition. There was about 25, 30 teams, I believe, of the barbecue competitors that entered, and I actually won that. And that was the first steak event I entered.
So that's kind of a common theme that I hear with the WFC competitors. Do you know Andy Emhoff? I mean, do you know Randy White from Dallas Fort Worth?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes, I do.
Randy actually got started when his father-in-law challenged him to a burger cook-off event. He said he'd whoop his butt basically in cooking burgers, and he went to this burger event and he won. And so he was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. That felt really good," and kind of entered that way. And I know he's a big barbecue guy like you are. But yeah, so you've had really a lot of success in, let's see, not just the steak competition a while back in Atlantic City, but look, the KCBS barbecue competition, that was your lead-in, right, to starting steak.
Yes.
Okay, so why because you've had a lot of success in chicken, ribs, all sorts of barbecue, and you've been doing that for what, 8, 9, 10 years now? A long time?
Yeah, just under 10 years. About just under 10 years ago, I started with the barbecue.
And what's the name of the team? I read this on the bio that you have up on the WFC homepage. What's the name of your team, or your current?
My current team name is Pigs and Zen, but the team that I pretty much to the last 8-9 years that I competed with out of New Jersey. They were schoolmates of mine. We actually graduated high school together. The name of that team is the Chicken Chokers, and they're still competing and doing well, actually, locally here.
I'm sorry. Sorry. That's really funny, man. That's really funny. That's awesome. So do you get to hang out with those guys anymore? Do you get to like cook with them? Throw some wood on the pit? Because look, I grew up in upstate New York, not too far from you. I grew up in near Saratoga Springs in Corinth, as we say there, and spent a lot of my youth in Saratoga, and then also in the city. And you're not far from New York City, so
no, not at all. I actually grew up about 5 miles from New York City.
Okay, were you north side of where were you?
In New Jersey, in the Meadowlands area, right outside Midtown.
Gotcha. Yeah,
basically.
that's a hop, skip, and a jump. You're in Manhattan in no time. You don't have to drive. That's kind of nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So were there? There's so much to talk about. Look, the WFC's been around for 9 years. You're the current reigning champion. We have Final Table coming up, which I don't want to talk about too much yet because that in itself is this huge premier event, which is going to be really exciting. I really wish I could go down there to watch the event, but I just can't. I have so much going on that weekend. And that's the National Restaurant Association's 100th show, the 100th anniversary on the same weekend.
Right.
But
I know.
I know. So you're obviously you're very versed in barbecue, and which, look, you grew up in the Northeast like I did. Was your version of barbecue growing up as a kid, was that like grilling out, or was that real smoked barbecue?
No, that was definitely grilling, which, still up here in the Northeast, their definition of barbecue is grilling. So yeah, they're still not really well versed in that, in our, it's pretty much the nation's, that's their style of cooking, right? That's the U.S. style, is pretty much barbecue. So still something not well known in the Northeast, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's funny is I remember there was a barbecue place, an actual smokehouse that was on a Route 9N coming up from New York City going into Saratoga Springs. I never ate there though, and I never realized it was there until I'd already moved to Texas like 20 years ago and drove back up there, and it was closed when I went by it one time. I was like, I've been to the A&W root beer there like 30 times, but yeah, it's interesting because smoking. All right, let's step back even one more step. Is there a particular style of barbecue, and we'll get into the steak in a minute, is there a particular style of barbecue that you prefer over any other? Without giving any, we won't talk about what would you use, but is there like a Carolina barbecue, Texas barbecue, Kansas City barbecue?
That's a good question. Because from the area where I, grew up and where I live here, there's a lot of ethnicity. There's just so many different cuisines. So, and I've pretty much grown up eating, a variety of different foods. So for me, there's no particular style that I kind of go towards. I'm more looking for, a good, clean, balanced taste, that pretty much, like I said, mostly balanced and just good tasting. I do like, a lot of the North Carolinas, with the vinegar style on that, and then the Kansas City with the sweet. Texas has their particular style. I like them all. There's no one particular that I go to. I pretty much, I just take a little bit from each and try to make it balanced, taste right, and it's really, it's got to be cooked right. That's really the key with barbecue.
Gotcha. So, I love all the different sauces. So the white sauces are some of my favorites. The vinegar and mayonnaise based. I'd never had that before. Absolutely phenomenal. If you've never had that, look, plenty of barbecue books out there. You can look up a recipe or just go on Google. We have about 5 minutes left in this segment. Can you hold over? Can you do the full hour, or can you only do half an hour? What kind of time do you have?
No, I'm available right now. I'm actually I have a herniated disc in my back, so I'm available.
Oh no, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. But man, that's going to make prep a little difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, the last week has been rough. I'm hoping the next week shows some improvement and gives me a good, 2 weeks to really hone down and pretty much get ready for this. this event. It's an unfortunate timing, but that's life.
Well, so let's talk about that for a minute. I've been a chef for a long time, and I'll be honest. What is your background before barbecue, or what do you do? What is your full time? I'd say gig, but what do you do full time?
I actually restore pianos.
Really?
I've been doing that now for about 25 years. Yeah, I'm not really food based at all. It kind of became a hobby with the barbecue thing about 10 years ago, and I've always kind of been not really a fan of the term foodie, but I guess I kind of fit that bill because the area I'm from and just the diversity we have here. I've always just kind of tried. I'm not afraid to try anything, and I try to incorporate as much diversity into what I cook as possible because flavor is flavor, and good food is good food, and I think there's a way to balance it all and just make it work.
No, so I like that, and look, if you restore pianos, there's a high level of attention to detail that goes into that, and you have to have a passion because this is not something that necessarily gives back to you for a long time, right? I can't imagine that's a 1 or 2 or 3 day job. I can't imagine it sings to you while you're restoring it. So, in doing that, patience, diligence, attention to detail, and a real pride in your craft. And I could see how that could carry over into any sort of food, whether it's barbecue in the smoking sense or whether it's steak. It really doesn't matter. It carries over. And that winning dish that you had, that really shows because you had a very complex plate, but the flavors all really meld. I'm gonna read through that real quick because I was not just impressed. Now that I know that you're not a professional chef, by trade, you are. Look, in my world, I've been a chef for 32 years. You're a professional chef. You won the World Steak Championship. Nobody can say you're not. So, but this dish is, it's North meets South ribeye, and this is the first year that everyone had the same cut of meat. Is that correct? This last fall.
Yes, that was actually the first year that the SCA, the Steak Cook-Off Association, had joined forces with the World Food Championships, and so basically the SCA Association, they were all qualifiers as a lead-in for the steak portion of the championships. So
and everybody had the same cut, same product.
Everyone gets the pick of ribeye. So it's basically you get two steaks. You pull a chip out of a bag and you get whatever number you pick. That's what number your pick is for steak, and you all line up and they put steaks on a table, and basically you pick your first steak and then they reverse the order for the second pick. So if you're pick 1, you're also the last pick for your second steak, and you only turn in one of those steaks.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Huh. So I've never attended a WFC event, not one of the larger ones anyway. I know that there's the Roanoke Ribeye Roundup is coming up the 4th of May. And then I think there's an eat class on the 5th with a pie. I think there's a pie contest with Donna, the from the Jelly Queens. She'll So I'm gonna actually be a judge with Randy and some other folks on that. It'll be a lot of fun. But I'm tempted to register for the ribeye roundup just to try my hand. I've worked at a couple of steaks, but we'll talk off air about the tricks of the trade. We're not gonna tell everybody, right? We got about a minute left. Yeah, we got about a minute left. But so you've been to these SCA cook-off, these events. Have you met Joe Wilson yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so all right, you'll meet him eventually. He's the guy out of Bentonville, Arkansas. Has a big handlebar mustache, curled up on the ends, and he hosts the world world champion cook-off every year. Let's just say when you meet him next time. If you ever see him, you'll know. There's no doubt. He's usually the MC for the events. But hey, we have about 30 seconds before we go to break. So I'm going to ask you some questions when we come back. Why the switch to steak? Think about that. B, your favorite event ever.
Right.
And I'm going to hold this other one for a few minutes. But I'm going to ask you something that I hope there's that you can answer this in a way that, yes, there certainly is. Because I want to know if there's any insider knowledge. I should be aware of and some people to watch while they're working side by side. So stay tuned for a second. Robert, hold on. We'll be right back. This is Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro, talking about WFC with #1 in the world, the reigning world steak cooking champion, Robert Mansfield. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Give us 2 minutes.
Follow Chef Patrick Mosher on Twitter @FoodBizPro. If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252.
Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost you less than what you're paying today. Diathrive is so convinced that you'll love their service, they're offering your first month of supplies free. Simply type the code DOC, D-O-C, at checkout. Diathrive.com. That's D-I-A, thrive.com.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All American Dish, your Dish authorized retailer now.
800-570-6630. 800-570-6630. That's 800-570-6630. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
And we're back, folks. This is Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro, right here on Spoony Radio. And our guest today is Robert Mansfield. Robert, I have to apologize. I didn't realize you were on the phone. I didn't refresh my screen. I probably kept you on hold a little while. So I'll bring you back. I'll give you free airtime. Well, it's always free, so you can call in any time. But I'd love to have you back another time. Right now, though, we got another half an hour to fill. So a few questions for you. All right, make sure you can hear me. So you were at this barbecue event in Atlantic City several years back. What prompted you to participate in the steak cook-off? I know it was unsanctioned, but was it just for fun? Was there some goal in mind?
Basically, for competitions, usually it's a 2 or 3 day event. So usually one of the nights, our dinner would actually be steak, and I was always the designated steak cooker, I guess you could say, because I just kind of always did it well. So just so happened this was like the first one that they happened to. I guess it was a local purveyor in Atlantic City. Wanted some exposure, and he kind of teamed up with the organizer. So they created this ancillary event. There was a steak ribeye cook-off, and basically it was just a small fee on top of your registration fee to enter, and there was a cash prize and a trophy, I guess, afterwards. But it was just we're already on site. We're already cooking, chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket for turn-ins. So it was actually a separate day from the barbecue turn-in, so it basically gave us something to do, and we knew we probably had a decent shot at it, and it actually turned out well for us. So that is history, I guess.
It's awesome. I mean, so when you won, did it kind of like literally or figuratively light a fire, under you to kind of go that direction, or did you still kind of hold back and participate mostly in the barbecue category?
Well, actually, I held back only because there really was not any other opportunities. Steak is still, at this point now, this year, there has already been more competitions in the Northeast this year than in the previous 10 years combined. So it's just kind of snowballing over the last couple of years, and it's really starting to blossom now in the Northeast. A lot of the competitors like it because, as opposed to the barbecue competitions, it's a one-day event. You're in the morning. You have a cook's meeting, pick your steaks. You have 3 or 4 hours to do whatever process you use to cook your steak, and basically turn in. After awards, everyone gets to go home. Whereas with the barbecue event, you are sourcing meat and trimming and all your other your spices and your sauces, plus it's cost and time is comparison-wise. There really is. It's just a much easier, and for a lot of these competitors, they're not chefs. They don't work in the food business, so it's mostly a hobby. So the steak category just makes it so much easier for the common man, just your everyday backyard griller and barbecue guy. The steak competitions just make life so much easier.
Yeah, well, so that makes sense. When I was a young chef, first coming out of culinary school and even in culinary school, I did a lot of the mystery basket competitions, because if you want to advance in your level of your designation, your certification in the for the American Culinary Federation, you have to compete. It's the only way to go forward. And I really enjoyed it, but there is a lot of pressure. I can't explain the difference between being in a restaurant where you have that flow, you're kind of in the zone. Even when you come across a problem and it's very stressful, you have to resolve it very quickly. I mean, you have one steak that you can turn in. I can always, as we call, burn it. I can burn 5 more and just hold them back, right? Sack them, as we say. And if I need one because I messed up a table, then I have it in reserve if I have to. That's not the preferred way to do service, folks. That's not how I do it. But if you get 500 reservations and 560 show up all in 2 hours, occasionally you bend the rules. But you have one day. I mean, you have one to turn in and one in reserve if you're lucky. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Not to mention, you're completely visible. So, I mean, I don't know how I don't know how Final Table works, because this will be the first one I've covered. But I mean, is there added pressure? Is it less pressure than, or more pressure than when you're, because you say it's a lot of work, it's a long time, but is there more pressure to perform because you really have that one shot? It's not low and slow. How does that work? How does that feel internally?
That's a great question. Truthfully, I think the pressure is less. Personally, I think the stress is less, just because you're pretty much subjected to whatever product they provide with steak. So you're not like with barbecue. Again, I hate to go back to that, but that's kind of my reference. If guys are cooking all different grades of proteins. Some guys are cooking prime beef, some guys are cooking Wagyu beef. So, I mean, that factor's involved. So the stress of that is taken out of the equation. I guess, again, you're right. Compared to barbecue, you are pretty much wide open with the steak, because you're pretty much on a table and a grill outside wherever they set you up. And, you're pretty much in the public, whereas a lot of the barbecue setups, you're in your trailer or your RV or however you set up, and it definitely, a lot of that is hidden. So you are exposed. Again, with the steak thing, you're pretty much allowed to go any route you want with cooking it. The SCA is really lax in that they allow any method to cook. So,
gotcha.
There are all different varieties. But again, I think what it comes down to is, again, you cook. It needs to be cooked perfectly, and it needs to be balanced. I mean, balanced and good taste is pretty much, the key to competition, to a lot of these barbecue and steak competitions. At least that's the way I see it.
Well, so that's a good point. I just talked about at the very beginning of the show. You brought this up, balance, right? In flavor, texture, crispness to the fat. So I mean, it was ribeye, which is my favorite cut of steak. Not always the one I choose. I'm trying to cut down on the fat, but my favorite cut because of the flavor. Now, is there, without giving away tricks, I mean, what are some of the things that you personally do to ensure that you get that balance of flavor, just enough salt? And do you have secret ingredients you put on it? Like, I'm just a salt guy. Heavy salt, grill it, be done. If you have a special method, you can say yes. You don't have to tell us, of course, because we don't want to. Well, you can tell me off the air. I'd gladly use it. But
well, as far as special method, no. I'm a hot and fast guy. I mean, for grilling and for steaks, for that type of protein, I like to sear it. I use some basic equipment. I use a PK grill, which is just a charcoal grill, which seems to dominate the steak cook-offs, and cook on grill grates, which gives you the nice cross-hatched presentation. As far as seasoning goes, there's a lot of proven salting always works, but truthfully, in the steak cook-off world, it seems like a combination of rubs or a combination of flavors. You kind of want to hit all points. You're looking for a little bit of everything. I mean, umami, you want some salt in there, you want the balance. Over salting will definitely hurt you in the steak world, and that's from experience I've learned, and just from friends. I have a lot of friends are now starting to actually switch over, and a lot of the barbecue competitors are starting to go full force into the steak cook-offs, again, just for the convenience and the ease of it. And it's just a more practical competition for the everyday guy, I guess you could say.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, look, and by oversalting, look, I cannot eat things that are terribly salty. If I send food back, it's almost always because it's inedible because it's too salty, and I just can't do it. I can eat it, but sometimes it's so overpowering. The good thing about a ribeye is it sweats some of that salt off because of the fat content and those, the fat roll in there. But all that aside, right? It's obviously you're the master of the steak. You've mastered barbecue. Is there anything that you're going into in this competition, because you have to cook in three categories, right, or three different dishes? Is that correct? You want to tell us what the setup for this event is?
3 challenges.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the first year basically where this is actually last year was my first time doing anything with the World Food Championships. I had never really been exposed to that before, and I had got in, from winning a state competition, and basically went from there. As far as the final table, again, this year it's a destination challenge where every previous year, the final table has been you're cooking your category. So I generally, if any previous year, if I had won, I would actually be cooking a steak dish. But this year, the format's changed, and it was only one dish, where this year it's a 3-round challenge, and it's a destination. So it's in New Orleans. So they want us cooking Cajun and Creole dishes.
Well, so here's the cool thing about that.
I mean, that's the main change.
So the cool thing about that, though, is the winning dish, the one that is crowned the World Food Champion, that winning dish will go on the menu at Antoine's, am I right? And they've not changed their menu. They've not added anything in 100 years. I mean,
that's correct. The oldest family-owned restaurant, and without a menu change in 100 years. So yeah, it's a pretty esteemed honor.
No, that'd be awesome.
Just to be considered for that.
I mean, that's like a chef's dream to get your menu item, your dish on that menu is that's like the pinnacle. I would, to be honest with you, I'd take that. Okay, internal debate here. Michelin star or a menu item on Antoine's Forever. I might have to go with a dish on their menu because they've already been around 100+ years. They're gonna survive. The Michelin star, you might lose it tomorrow. You never know. So, it sounds like. So that being said, are there any areas without showing any weakness. It's kind of too late for that now. Anyway, are there any areas that you were trying to brush up on, or that you felt a little maybe I need to work on this or that? Any mentors you went to say, hey, can you help me work with this? And if you want to, feel free to give a shout out to anyone who's helped you along the way.
I truthfully, personally, I've been to New Orleans a few times. I actually went there for a few days before we moved on and onto Orange Beach and won the World Food. So I actually spent a few days prior to winning the steak division at the World Foods. But other than that, I'm not really have much experience cooking that style of cuisine. But I did reach out. I do have some friends up here and kind of all across. Luckily, with social media, the globe has gotten a lot smaller. But I do have a local friend of mine. He's a barbecue guy. Cajun Jack's is his business. He actually now is a Creole and Cajun food vendor up here. So I reached out to him, and he gave me some help. And then my sous chefs, Matthew Brown and Hiram Quintana, they both have experience with that. So, I basically reached out to my group of people, and we've kind of all, joined heads, and I think we'll come up with something that's going to work.
That's very cool. Can I give you one piece of advice?
I'm really feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, not like it means. Do not try to maybe not choose Oysters Rockefeller as the dish that you're going to try to win with. I'm joking. Look, so it originated in that restaurant in 1889, and nobody knows exactly what's in it.
Right.
They've never revealed the recipe since Can you believe that? 129 years, 130 years.
Yeah.
That recipe's never been revealed by a single cook. I mean, granted, only the family members know, but what a cool heritage. And again, I wish you all the luck down there. We're not quite done yet, but it's got to be so exciting for whoever wins this competition to get that dish on that menu. And from Mike McLeod to have pulled that off and not finagled, he worked his butt off to make sure that this happened. Man, that in itself was probably a several-year-long operation. But, all right, a couple other things real quick, 12 minutes quick. We got plenty of time left. So before the WFC, was there a favorite event you like to go to every year? Was there something that it was so much fun or it was so iconic that you couldn't miss it?
As far as big events, no. Actually, last year was probably my year for big events. I had won the SCA steak cook-off that got me to the World Foods, also won me a golden ticket to the SCA World Steak Championships in Fort Worth. That was in September.
Did you make it down here for that? No, I'm sorry. Did you make it down here for that?
Yeah, I did. I made it, and that was actually only my fourth steak event. Was the World Championships in Fort Worth, and the way their format was, basically it was four groups of 40 teams, and you needed to make top 10 to move on to the final 40. And unfortunately, at that point, my strategy was a little different in how I was cooking my steaks, and unfortunately, my steak was way overcooked. But I mean, you needed to make top 10, and I was 13th. I had just missed that, even with a very horrible doneness score. So I compensated the next day for the Open and managed to make top 40 in the world, basically in the Open. So that was a good lead-in, which led basically the next month into the World Food. And then I actually, in that month, I also went to the Jack Daniel's Barbecue World Championship in Lynchburg, Tennessee. So last year was my big events: the World Foods, Jack Daniel's, and the SCA World Steak Championship. So I kind of did them all at one year. So out of all three of those, I would have to say, they were all really great events. It's really tough to even pick a winner out of all three of those. They were really all good events. Obviously, my most successful event has been the World Food Championships event, So right now, that's at the top of my list, and that's my main priority this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand. That's a pretty big prize. The grand winner gets, not just the honors of the menu item on Antoine's, but $100K. That's not 100Ks. That's $100,000. That's a lot of money, man. I don't care what world you live in. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, that's especially for a food competition. That's pretty
Absolutely
much to the pinnacle.
So
yeah, this is and it's the time is slowly approaching.
So do you have any rivals? Well, you were talking about the event here, the SCA World Steak Cook-Off here in Fort Worth. The MC that has the hat on and the big curly mustache, that's Joe Wilson, the goofy guy. Real funny.
Yeah. All right.
Joe runs, but what's better known as the Squirrel Dairy up in Bentonville, Arkansas. And he's a character, but I'm sure he'll be at the event in New Orleans, and I know he'll be here in October when everybody's back in Dallas for the WFC event this year. But I had a couple things. Are there any is there anybody you keep your eye on in these competitions? You're like, I need to find out what he's doing, or I need to keep an eye out for them. I hope I get the draw before or after this team or that team. Is there any kind of friendly internal rivalries? Maybe other people that came over from the barbecue world that you or you kind of see around you, even if you don't participate openly?
Yeah, actually, there are. It's funny because last year it was, I was one of only two people from New Jersey, I believe, that competed at the World Food Championships. Funny, being the other person I graduated high school with. It's a girl that I went to high school with. Her and her husband both made the finals too. So I literally think we were the first from New Jersey. But this year, some of my friends, some of my barbecue competitor friends, there are now two of my friends from New Jersey also going to Texas to compete at the Worlds, and
Wow.
they'll probably both be at the World Food Championships as well.
Well, I know some people like Christina Fitzgerald jumped over. Yeah, so like Christina Fitzgerald, didn't she jump over from barbecue? I think they're out of St. Louis. She and her husband, and there are a bunch of people switching to steak. Is there a different category that you would love to compete in that's not barbecue or steak, or are you going to kind of hang your hat and if you win this one, you're done?
No, I think we've done well in ancillaries. We've also gotten perfect scores in dessert and chef's choice. So we've had a pretty good grilling career as well. So obviously this year, and I'm pretty much focused on steak, and I already have done a barbecue event, but that's kind of taken a back seat. But I would not be against moving into another category, or maybe trying to qualify in another category at the World Food, because I think that would be, just to be able to make top 10 in multiple categories. I think that would be a great achievement.
Yeah, that's there's. I know you got enough on your plate. I'm not trying to put you 3 years down the road thinking, what else could I do? I didn't realize, so until last year, I didn't realize there were 10 categories and 10 category winners. And I think this year, the wrench in the spokes is that it's now in 3, different challenges. And how many people can you have in your team? And how much can you rely on them? Because look, you've got an injury right now. You're going to have to rely on your teammates, your sous chefs, quite a bit. Not necessarily in the design of the dish, but in the assistance to that. But for some of the legwork leading up and to the event, how does it feel? I know you have the ultimate trust in them, but that's got to add another layer of stress and complexity to competing this year.
Well, definitely. The fact that I'm injured pretty much leading up to the biggest competition in my life is, again, not surprising to me, because seems luck over my life has kind of always gone that way, although I have had some wonderful things happen. I'm not complaining, but yeah, again, I have two great sous chefs, two great chefs in themselves who are assisting me. I have the utmost confidence in both of them, and I'm just going to power through the pain. This is pretty much the competition of a lifetime, and whatever it takes to do our best and win it, that's the way I'm looking at it. Everything else is secondary, even pain.
Yeah, so I have to tell you, working in a restaurant for so many years, pain is the most difficult factor to deal with. You know, especially back, your back, feet, and knees or legs, because you use them for everything. It's look, we're going to wish you the best on that. You're going to overcome it. You're going to go in. You're going to kick some butt. I'm all for Team Mansfield, so you got my vote. You know what? Hey, there you go. Hey, Mike, you need another judge. If you're listening, hello, McLeod. I'll send you my resume. You probably won't be impressed, but I might qualify. You never know. Again, hey, this is a WFC champion Robert Mansfield, the winner of the steak invitational cook-off. This was last year. This was November or December in Orange Beach.
November.
Okay, so
November.
In a lot of the other categories, humidity plays a role. Now, I don't know about this particular category because it's primarily everyone is grilling for the most part. Did that play a factor at all? The temperature swings. It was like cold on Friday. It was hot throughout the early week. Lots of rain. Did that play a factor, and if so, how?
You know what? I didn't notice it so much there as I have in a couple other locations. We were in Orange Beach, so generally I cooked the first day of the steak qualifiers, and luckily I had the better weather day. The second day was really windy and blustery, and just a horrible day to actually have to cook outdoors. I didn't notice any difference. Truthfully, the biggest thing I've noticed in different locations, especially with the steak, because they're providing proteins, is just the difference in the steaks and how they cook. That's the biggest thing I've noticed. Because I've cooked now in several parts of the country, and that's the biggest factor. They give you 2 steaks, and I've learned that first steak is a practice steak, and if you don't use it as a practice steak, it can lead to not the best results, which I learned at the Steak World cook-offs last year in Fort Worth. Well, I think it's more of just a product, difference as opposed to the weather. As far as grilling, I haven't had to grill in the heavy snow yet. Although it was snowing earlier in Atlantic City in March when we did our first of the year.
All right, we got just a couple minutes left here. One last question about the actual method you're using or not using, but do you have, without, you don't have to give a brand, or if you want to give a shout out, do you have a particular fuel that you like to use? Is it like a Coke style pressurized charcoal?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually, what my fuel of choice right now, I used to be a briquette guy for years, but now what I'm using is Jealous Devil charcoal. They're based out of California, and it's a lot of South American hardwoods. Just a really clean, consistent burn, and it's just worked wonderful. The first weekend I used it, I cooked 3 meats and got calls in all 3 categories.
Man,
and every time I've used it, I've actually gotten a call with it. So
nice.
Jealous Devil is where I'm going.
Well, I'll tell you, if you don't know what it's like to cook over live fire, or like a heat source like a charcoal, especially the pressurized charcoal like that, man, it's intense. The heat is very intense, especially those hardwoods. The thing I like that you use in that mix, that blends of South American hardwoods and probably woods that we're not totally familiar with here, is a lot of the products tend to be mesquite, which adds kind of this it's a little acidic, and it's almost got that petroleum aspect to it after you cook. It kind of has that, there's not a residue, but there's the flavor. There's a hint of petroleum, and there is a residue, but it's one of my favorites because it stays so hot, it burns so hot, but the flavor isn't there. So I'm gonna have to try that and see what happens during my grilling out summer. But all right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. If you want to wrap it up, say thanks to anyone. Robert, thank you for coming on. Again, the world food champion in the steak category. Getting ready to go to final table here the 18th of May. 16th, 17th, 18th of May, somewhere around there in New Orleans.
Yeah, 17th, 18th, and 19th.
So yeah, same time.
Yes, sir.
Of course, same time as the food show in Chicago. Well, I appreciate you taking time, man. I hope you feel better. We're rooting for you. We'll follow what happens, and hey, no matter what happens, if you want to come back, we'd love to have you on as with a follow-up interview and give your thoughts on the process and how they've done things this year and your thoughts on the winner, and congratulations, hopefully, for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the time in the show. Had a great time, and yeah, I would love to come back. I'll give you some updates and how things went down in New Orleans.
All right, man. Well, we'll check in, and all right. Hey, take care, and thanks again, Robert. All right, folks, that was Robert Mansfield. That he is the current reigning world champion steak master. That's what else can you say? You know, not even steak cook, steak master, master of the grill. Anyway, he's going to be competing down at the final table event of the World Food Championships. Mike McLeod has done an awesome job in just 8 short years. I think it's 8 short years. He has turned this little collection of events that led to one big competition into a monster, man. 2,000 events, one champion, 1 year in the making. Man, that's all we got. Hey, second course is done. You've had your soup and salad. Now, time for the entree. Well, we just had steak. No, we'll go backwards. Let's have soup and salad third. We'll be right back.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoony.
Breaking news this hour, townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. In Atlanta just a few minutes ago.
Today we come together to address an issue that is close to all of our hearts.
Even before President Trump took the podium, where he is still speaking, it was First Lady Melania joining the president at the event dear to her heart. She's made the opioid crisis a key priority, and she says she's traveled around the country to witness its impact on mothers and their children.
I have met with doctors, nurses, mothers, and children. We will continue to raise awareness of the dangers of opioids to unborn babies.
Women of childbearing age said to be the biggest single demographic vulnerable to addiction to prescription drugs. President Trump says he has no intention of cooperating with congressional investigations led by House Democrats.
The president is fed up.
I say it's enough.
After nearly 2 years of being investigated by the special counsel, the president says Congress needs to focus on other business.
Get back to infrastructure, get back to cutting taxes, get back to lowering drug prices.
The president says his White House will be fighting all the subpoenas issued by House Democrats in their ongoing investigations. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice says it will not comply with a subpoena from House Democrats who are investigating the inclusion of a citizenship question on the 2020 census.
Justice says it won't allow one of its officials to testify before the House Oversight Committee unless counsel is allowed in the room with him. It's the latest sign the Trump administration plans an all-out fight against an increasing number of Democrat-led investigations. A spokesman for the Justice Department says, in keeping with long-standing policy, no department official will be allowed to testify on any official matter without DOJ counsel present.
This Capitol Hill correspondent Wally Hines reporting on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average right now down by 55 points. More of these stories at townhall.com.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
Funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone. RADUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com. RIDUzone.com.
Got an old car? You can donate it, whether it's running or not, to the United Breast Cancer Foundation and save a life. They'll even come and pick it up for free. The United Breast Cancer Foundation has saved hundreds of women's lives through their free or low-cost breast screen exams. But now they need your help. The United Breast Cancer Foundation wants to save more lives through early detection by offering women free or low-cost breast screening exams. And donating your old car, SUV, or truck, whether it's running or not, helps pay for them. Plus, you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. Call right now. That number again is 800-245-0823.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
And welcome back once again, Spoony listeners. We are now in the third course of today's show. Yes, the third course, better known as the entree, but I think we just ate steak for the second course, so we'll go back to soups and salads. How's that? Or soup or salad? Soup and salad? Super salad? I think super salad would be an entree by itself. So we're gonna go with soup today. You know why? No, nobody knows why. Because it's the time of year when all these wonderful spring onions come up. We're talking ramps and leeks and spring onions themselves. If you've ever worked with Japanese food, there's something called Tokyo Negi. Tokyo Negi is kind of Tokyo Negi. Negi means onion. Tokyo is the breed, the species, I suppose. But Tokyo Negi is it looks like a leek but smaller. It's not as strong a flavor, and I wouldn't say it's super common in Japanese food, but it's a great addition to those delicately flavored Japanese dishes. However, since it's leek season, well, what do you do with them? I mean, what do you do with leeks, really? I mean, they're a really big, kind of like an onion. It's like an overgrown green onion, scallion, right? I mean, overgrown. We're talking scallion went to Hulk mode right away. They're typically 1.5 inches across. You have this white bottom with a little root hanging off there. 3 to 4 inches of that white, tender, edible portion. You can eat the rest. It's not as tasty. It's kind of fibrous, but it's a very mild form of onion. And they're incredible. They add a great depth of flavor. As a matter of fact, if I'm making a curried or any sort of butternut squash soup, I don't just use onion. I use onion, shallot, leek, and garlic as the base to saute before you take the roasted squash out and put it in. And that's how but that richness that you get from onions, especially when caramelized really slowly or just slowly cooked till translucent to release all the volatiles in there, right? All the acids and the oils. One of my all-time favorites. So what do you do with leeks, though? Leek, obviously a very underrated, I believe, item in the kitchen. And most home cooks don't use them because they're a little intimidating. And I don't really blame people for that. It's, again, it's this odd-looking giant scallion. The problem is they're sandy inside. It grows in this kind of sandy, loamy soil. And so what do you do with it? You cut it in half, right? But leave it all intact. Maybe cut the bottom 5 or 6 inches off. You don't need all that green part on the top. Cut off 5 or 6 inches, maybe 2 inches to 3 inches above where the white starts to turn to green and that pale green starts to turn to dark. So right in that transition, right where the dark starts, really hard fibers outside, that's where you start. You cut the top off, cut that in half lengthwise, but leave the bottom attached. So don't cut the root end off, because otherwise it all falls apart, which is okay. It just makes it hard to put back together in julienne later or dice or whatever, chop up however you're going to do it. So you take that, while that root end is attached, you get some cold running water and you kind of spread the layers, open them up and rinse all that dirt out. Now you've got a nice clean leek. Then you can cut the root end off. You can julienne them. You can do whatever you want. If for any reason there's residual dirt, just put them in a fine strainer and rinse the sliced, diced, chopped, prepared leek off, and it's very easy. So I was thinking of 5 or 6 different ways of using leeks, but Epicurious, which is my favorite website to go for recipes, has 19 ways to use leeks. Number 1 is leek and potato galette with pistachio crust. That actually looks really, really good. And this is just not a galette. It's kind of like a free-form pie, right? I make them all the time. I like to make free-form apple pies for Christmas instead of using a pie tin or a pie pan. I actually just take the dough after it's you make your round. I usually make it quite large, 16 inches across. You take your apple mixture, you put it in the center, and then you just kind of fold this pastry shell, right, your crust, over the apples. So there's about a 2 to 3 inch overlap over the apples. You do it in like sections, so you basically come out with this uneven octagon or hectagon of pastry dough, and then you butter the outside. You bake it in the oven. Butter. You sprinkle a little sugar on it. Throw it in the oven. In this case, though, you have a more savory dish, and this is this pistachio crust. I think with the leek is what makes it so interesting. So the recipe goes like this, and I'll post the link to all of this. But for the dough, it's a half cup of raw pistachios. Oh, I like that already because now it's actually in the pistachio. I was thinking there'd be a crust like a what's it called? A streusel on top, which is a butter, some sort of flour, and like a little sugar, typically. And that's you knead that into this kind of crumbly consistency. You put it on top, and you bake it on like brown Betty's or some sort of a dessert. But in this case, your dough actually has a half a cup of raw pistachios. Why do you use raw pistachios? A, the color is brilliant. They're like emerald green. They're very cool. And B, the flavor's a lot less intense than roasted pistachios. And if you're going to use them in the dough, then they're probably going to overcook during the baking process. So it's 1/2 cup raw pistachios, 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon kosher salt, 1 teaspoon sugar, 1 cup or 2 sticks of chilled unsalted butter cut into pieces. When they say cut into pieces, cut them in like 1/2-inch squares. Now from there, you have for the filling, it's 1 tablespoon of olive oil plus more for drizzling. Oh, I thought it was honey on there. This sounds even better. 1 large leek, white and pale green parts only, which we spoke about before. Make sure you clean them, and then thinly sliced. So thinly sliced is not julienne. It's cross-cutting across the leek, so you end up with these half rounds of leeks, and they'll fall apart on you. You have 4 ounces of fresh goat cheese, 5 tablespoons of heavy cream, 2 garlic cloves finely chopped, kosher salt, fresh ground pepper, all-purpose flour for your surface to keep things so they don't stick, and let's see, 4 tablespoons coarsely chopped dill divided. So you're gonna use half, and then the other half probably you're gonna put some of it fresh on top. 2 large Yukon Gold potatoes. I'll bet they don't pre-cook these. I'll bet they're going to bake them as is, sliced on top of on the top of this. 1 large egg beaten to blend, and crushed pink peppercorns. If you haven't ever used pink peppercorns, it's a really good way to get a little bit of pepper flavor, but without the intensity and the heat of pepper. One of my favorite preparations is like a pink peppercorn cream sauce. It can be served with anything from melon and prosciutto to a slight variation of like steak Diane, which is green peppercorns in a cream sauce, a pan-made cream sauce. But in this case, you want the crushed pink peppercorns, and you buy them whole. Put them in your actually get a separate grinder. Keep your pink peppercorns in there, and then when you want to add a little bit of color or a little bit of depth to your dish, you can add that on top of the other ground black pepper. So for the dough, the easiest way to make this is in a food processor. So you put the pistachios in and you pulse it until they're coarsely ground. You don't want really finely ground because it's going to start to make this paste. You add your flour, your salt, your sugar, and pulse to combine. It should be not quite a dough at that time. It's going to be more dense than your flour and sugar and salt would be. But in this case, you have to put in once you put the butter in, right? And you want to do it you want to pulse this 3 or 4 times. And what you're looking for are these pea-sized or just smaller than pea-size pieces of dough. What that ensures is that you don't have large chunks of butter that melt out of the dough and burn. and or get super flaky, crunchy parts of dough, and then some that are not as lean or that are more lean and not as rich, and you don't get that consistency. So you have the butter pulse a few times until you get this coarse meal. And with the motor running, then you have to, that's when you put in just a little bit of ice water. And in this case, it's a half cup of ice water. Why ice water? If you don't use ice water, then the butter heats. When the butter heats, then it spreads out, it melts, you get more of a pasty feeling dough and not that typical nice flaky pastry dough you're used to working with. So once that starts to come together, you just stop the machine, stop adding water. You just want a loose dough. Transfer it to a work surface. You form it into a ball like all doughs. We let it rest in the fridge. You put it in a flattened disc, wrap it in plastic, put it in at least 30 minutes. That allows the gluten in the flour to relax. You get a nice, again, flaky pastry dough instead of something more like bread. Now for the filling and assembly, all right, so we're not obviously not going to get through all 19 of these recipes, but for the filling, preheat the oven to 400. Take the oil, put it in a small skillet, about a tablespoon, and you want it over medium low. You don't want to heat the olive oil so much that it's going to start smoking. It starts to break down the oil at that point. So you take your leeks and cook those until they're softened. Probably about 5 minutes. They start to get if they start to get color, take them off the heat. You want to do it very slowly. You're just trying to sweat them. You're trying to get the liquid out and soften them so that you have all the flavor, but no caramelization. Then you mix the goat cheese, the cream cheese, and garlic in a medium bowl, seasoned with salt and pepper. And at that point, you take the dough out, divide it into 4 pieces, and then you roll each piece out to about an 8-inch round. This is probably going to serve 1 to 2 people. This is more of a course, not an entire meal. But you roll them out to an 8-inch round, and then I typically use parchment paper, or if you don't have parchment paper, or rather if you don't want to use parchment paper and you don't have any, if you happen to have something called a Silpat, they're these silicone mats that you bake on. There are other names. Silpat is a French brand. They're not inexpensive, but they last, literally, they last forever. You can cook up to temperatures, I believe, up to about 500 degrees, and nothing ever sticks to them. They're awesome. They're very easy to clean. Let them dry, roll them up, stick them back in the drawer. Again, they last forever. It's a one-time purchase. So you line your baking sheet. Then you we're going to talk spatulas now, Jeff. We're going to talk spatulas. At this point, Jeff may have been right about needing a large spatula because you take an offset spatula, that's a spatula that has a handle that doesn't go straight, and where it goes into the head of the spatula, there's a bend, like a 45-degree bend. That's an offset spatula. So you want to loosen the dough from the countertop, and once you do that, I always loosen it first. Don't form the tart yet. Don't form the galette. Loosen it first. Then you spread 1/4 of the goat cheese over the dough. You put about leave about a 1-inch border. These are small. They're 8 inches, so 1 inch is plenty. Then you take about a tablespoon of dill and you sprinkle that over the top. Then you top it with a thin layer of potato slices. When they say a thin layer, you're talking just enough to cover, and you probably want these sliced 1/4 of an inch to 1/3 of an inch. You don't want them any thicker because they won't cook all the way through. And there's nothing worse than seeing something beautifully presented on your table. You're waiting, potato, it's a meat and potato dish. This is America. We love potatoes. And then you take a bite and it's not cooked. Okay. One of the most difficult things in restaurants, a steak restaurant or any place that serves a lot of baked potatoes, is timing those potatoes all the time. It is the bane of the existence of every chef in every steakhouse. There's a science and there's a method and there's a madness to it, and you learn it. But the thing is, you're always trying not to cook any more potatoes than you need, because every 35 or 30 cent potato that you cook has to be used in another preparation or thrown away. So you try not to cook any extra, and inevitably, at the end of the night, 1 table left with 7 guests, and you have 6 potatoes, and you're like, not a problem. It's not going to be a problem. And then you have to try and microwave and bake 1 potato in the time that you can cook the other 7 steaks and get it on the table. It never fails to happen. So listen, cut them thin. If they're thin and you cook it this first time, they're thinner than you needed because they cooked all the way through. Make a second layer. That's a good idea. Cut them paper thin so you can see through them. Use a little Japanese mandolin. If you have a regular mandolin, use it. If you have a slicer, use that. Carefully, but cut them thin, like somewhere 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch. Slice them thin and make 2 layers. It's really pretty that way. Trust me, you'll appreciate it. Anyway, so you layer with potatoes. I got to put my glasses on because I can't read without them. At that point, you drizzle with a little olive oil, season with salt, and you can go a little liberal with salt. Don't not too heavy-handed, but probably about a little less than a 1/4 teaspoon would suffice for this. So you sprinkle the salt, and then you put the leeks over the top of the potatoes. Fold the edges of the dough over, and then you want to make sure that you kind of tuck and overlap each section of dough. So if you fold one section over, the next one should make a crease in the dough, so that when it bakes, it doesn't open, because otherwise you get leakage, and nobody wants leakage on their leek tart. Get it, leakage? Ha! Yeah, worst joke of the year, but I'm sure I have more coming. At that point, you take your so you take the other 3, do the same thing, fold the edges over, tuck and overlap. Then when you're done with that, you take the goat cheese mixture, chopped dill, potatoes, leeks, and more, blah, blah, blah. You brush the top of it with egg. Now, it says egg, except I wouldn't use the whole egg. I just use I would just take the yolk, mix it up in a bowl, and brush the top. It's going to give this nice kind of, you brush the top of the dough. It's going to give it this nice brown appearance. And if you don't have an egg, actually, you can use milk, works as well. You can use butter, but with butter, you have to remember that it burns fairly easily, and you're also adding richness to the dough, so it can change the texture. Plus, we just don't need the extra fat. But egg yolks right now are good for you, according to, I don't know, the 15,000th study that said, no, they're bad, no, they're good, no, they're bad, no, they're good. They're good for you. Just use the egg yolk. If you use the whole egg, make sure that you don't get the stringy, the whole egg white stringy, one big strand stuck on one section of the dough. It just doesn't look good later. Yeah, I'm not going to go into the details of what it looks like, but at that point, you bake them till the crusts are golden brown. Potatoes are soft. It's about 30 to 40 minutes. When they come out, see, there is honey. You drizzle with honey and top with dill sprigs. At this point, you could actually drizzle with olive oil on that as well. Sprinkle with the pink peppercorns, and that's pretty much it. Make sure that you grind those. You can't use the whole pink peppercorns. You have to use a grinder. And that's it. This looks delicious. I'm going to post this recipe and some others. Yeah, that's it. One of the cool things about pie dough is you can make it a day ahead. And you can actually make it further ahead than that. And if prepared and sealed properly, you can freeze it. But the key is that you kind of need it doesn't have to be a sealer, but if you have a bag sealer on your kitchen counter that you never use, then use it. It's there for a reason, right? That's another one of those things that people say, oh, remember what we do and don't need in the kitchen? As a matter of fact, I think it's time for that. What is the most useless item of the day? Oh, Jeff's laughing at me because we're going to go to, yeah, he's laughing. We need to go through this because we have to get to our daily bacon report, right? So these bag sealers, these vacuum sealers that everybody uses, they're awesome if you use them. 9 times out of 10, I go to my friends' homes, they're on the counter, and they never use them. And they're not cheap. They're $70, $80. Some are $110, $120. That's not the catch. The problem is they give you these really cool bags that are sealed on 3 sides when you get the unit. You put it on the counter, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Look, this bag is just the right size for what I need. And then there's a roll of bag inside. Okay, so the roll's fine, right? Except once you cut that first piece off, now 2 ends are unsealed. So you have to seal one end and then put the product in and seal the other end. That's not hard. That's not difficult. The problem is you almost always inevitably cut the wrong size, right? It's either too big or too small. So you end up, if it's too small, you have to cut another one. You don't want to waste the first one. You're going to put half the product in it. They're awesome. They're awesome. I take that roll, I just stick it in the back of the cabinet, and I use it if absolutely necessary. I go down to the local Walmart, if that's where you got it, Target, I don't care which store you go to, or go online because it's much cheaper, and I buy the bags that are pre-made. Why? Because I want to. It saves me the effort, and I don't look like a fool after 32 years in the kitchen. And, yeah, I just don't want to look like a fool. All right, so today's bacon report. It's not really a report, right? But I heard something. One of the WFC competitors was talking about, and yes, I'm not anti-bacon, folks. I'm not anti-bacon. I'm not wearing the bacon shirt today. I'm sorry. I'll wear it next week. But I'm not anti-bacon. I love it. It's overused, but I love it. They were talking about if they were going to switch categories. I believe that they had won the chicken category, I believe. If they were going to switch categories, though, they'd enter bacon. And when asked what they do with the dish, maybe was that today on the show? They were talking about they should have a taco. They should have a taco category. And the reason why is they wanted to make the taco shell out of bacon, laced bacon. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy some bacon tonight on the way back in. I'm going to make bacon taco shells. Dude. Oh, Jeff finally woke up. Jeff, are you okay over there? Am I boring you to death, or are you just tired, brother? It's been a long day.
No, this is all good. I mean, yeah, I was actually trying to figure out what show was it that you were talking about as far as...
I don't remember. So I'll be honest with you. It was a long day. That we had a terrible torrential downpour all night long last night. It started at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon yesterday, and it went all night. It went until... Well, it was raining just a little while ago. Sometimes I can't tell. The AC kicks on, and I'm like, that's loud, but it sounds like 50 million miniature reindeer on the roof when it rains here. For a studio, we are not perhaps the most soundproof building in the world, but no one slept well in the whole city of the DFW area last night, and there was tremendous lightning and thunder. So we're all a little under. And I didn't even know if the roads are going to be open today, to be honest with you. I'm waiting around thinking, is anyone going to show up to work today? I was surprised Skinny Jeans Brandon made it, but good for him. He pulled them up and used them as high waters. Sorry, Brandon. Love you, brother. But yeah, so we're listening, and the question was, I think it was on Derry O'Connor's show, the Try This Dish Radio. They had interviewed, Jackie, who had won the chili competition. They said, what would you do if you wanted to change categories? And she said, I'd definitely go for they needed a taco, right? The taco category, and because she wants to cook bacon, and that she would do a laced taco shell with bacon, and it just sounds so cool. I'm not sure how that's going to work out because, look, bacon's very, it's got a lot of shrinkage when you cook it, right? And that, in our terms, in culinary terms, means the loss in yield from the originating weight to the time that you get done cooking. The other thing, it can be if you're in the grocery store or in that end of the business, or if you're in the restaurant business, shrinkage is also when people steal and eat food that they didn't pay for. So you have to account for that loss. It's called shrinkage. But when you have that bacon, it's nice and it's laced really tightly together before cooking. What happens after cooking? I guess it all shrinks in accordance to, does it all shrink together? I'm going to try it. I want to know what happens because I want to make them. And then they're going to come out of the oven hot. I do have an oven now. I forgot I have an oven. I was thinking, how am I going to do that? I don't have an oven. If I don't have an oven, I can't. But we have an oven now on the back counter. I need to make sure it works. Put them in the oven, and then, while they're still warm, you can mold them. Just about over anything. If you don't have something specifically taco shaped, what works really well is if you have a rolling pin, a wooden rolling pin, especially one that's not too large. I know most rolling pins are larger than that, so what else could we use? Anything that's not going to melt. I got lots of microphones sitting around. Those are a little big, though. Whatever you have in your household, something made of metal. Would work? Wooden spoon. The back of a wooden spoon, the larger the handle, the better. Drape it over that when it comes out. Make sure you don't drip the grease on your fingers, guys, or your arm. Don't get burned. Those are not burns, by the way. Those are bacon kisses, okay? But you drape it over, let it harden up like that. The bacon's got to be crispy enough to be shell-like, but not burned. So this is going to be a challenge, especially on an oven I've never used. I'm going to pick bacon up either on the way home tonight or in the morning. I'm going to do this.
Wouldn't it be easier just to be able to cook the bacon, and then once it's cooked, put it inside the taco shell, shape it that way? Because this way you still get the corn of the taco shell, you get the bacon, and then you got the taco meat or the chicken or whatever you're going to put in there, right?
But, so chefs are kind of gluttons for punishment. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. We're not just adrenaline junkies. We're full of vinegar, right? Honey and vinegar, as a matter of fact. But no, we like to not necessarily do things the difficult way, but we like to challenge ourselves in our efforts and try something new that we haven't done before. But you're right, you could kind of make it like a multi-layered taco or the chalupa or whatever it is, where you just line the inside of the shell with bacon. But dude, what would be the fun in that? Then you're holding the shell with bacon inside. I want the bacon on the outside. I want a bacon wrapped taco is what I want. Outer shell bacon, inner shell corn. What do you think? I know. I'm getting kind of... No, I'm not getting silly. That'd be awesome. I'm going to try that. All right. Going to break. When we come back, Laura Geen from Ramo de Oliva will be here with Wine Down Wednesday. I have a big announcement. I get to go to something really, really cool tonight. You're going to be jealous? If I had an extra ticket, I still wouldn't give it to you. Okay. Maybe one. Come right back. 2 minutes.
Follow Chef Patrick Mosher on Twitter @Food Biz Pro.
Dr. Ken Brown here, host of Gut Check Project with my co-host Eric Rieger. Eric, we've been seeing Mojo guys over there and over here at Spoony talk about Atrantil for bloating. I've seen in my practice that Atrantil is a whole lot more than just a bloating product.
Yes, it does a whole lot more than just fix bloating because of the polyphenols that you find in Atrantil.
You're exactly right. The polyphenols are those molecules that we find in the Mediterranean diet. It makes vegetables and fruits very colorful. What are some of the things that these polyphenols do, Eric?
These polyphenols can actually stop inflammation. They can help you have more energy. They can help you with anti-aging. And polyphenols are great for athletes.
It sounds like it's going to help a whole lot more people than just bloating. Tell me how everybody should be taking Atrantil.
If you want to dose Atrantil, it's 2 capsules 3 times a day, basically with your meals. But if you aren't bloated and you just want that polyphenol intake every day, 2 to 3 capsules a day will work for you.
Go to lovemytummy.com/Spoony.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-452-1075. 800-452-1075. That's 800-452-1075.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
All right, folks, it's time for dessert, or in our case, it's time for wine, because it is Wine Down Wednesday. Now, Laura's not yet called in. She'll be calling in a few moments, but I got an invitation tonight to go to, actually, he was a guest of mine. I'm a huge fan of Kent Rathman. He's very established. He's a very accomplished local chef. I got an invitation to his home tonight to... there's a media event tonight for Jordan Cabernet. Jordan Vineyards. They're releasing their 2015 Cabernet tonight, and I was one of 100 people from the media invited. I thought that was really cool. So it should be a lot of fun, and I will be doing some Facebook Live stuff from the event. I say event. It's a tasting. It's not a 15-course meal, which I don't know, man. I've seen Chef Kent Rathman's kitchen. It's nicer than most of the restaurant kitchens I've ever worked in. It's pretty spectacular. He and his wife Tracy own several restaurants here in town, including, there's Imoto, his brand new restaurant downtown, which is Asian themed, a lot of Japanese components to that. They also have the, Lovers Seafood Market and Grill. Or seafood, Lovers Seafood and Market, I believe is what it's called. And then there's the sister restaurant right next door, which is where I believe the shuttle leaves from tonight. But I don't know. It's another Japanese word. Like I don't know any Japanese words, you know. If I were speaking Japanese and I was really upset about that, I'd go, chukusho. Don't ask what it means. It's okay. It's really like the worst thing you can say in Japanese, but it really means, darn. Okay. All right. So, looks like Laura's on the line. Hold on one second there, Laura. Are you there, Miss Wine Down Wednesday?
Hey, Patrick. Wine Down Wednesday. We're back.
Yes, you know, I don't have any wine to drink today, but that's okay. I probably don't need it. So it was a long night of really bad thunderstorms here. But how are you doing? What's new in the world of Bentonville, Arkansas, home of Sam's, Walmart, and all that is wonderful wine and wine, vinegar, olive oil at Ramo de Olivo?
Olive oil, yeah. Yeah, we're just, you know, it's spring here. We did get a little rain, but not the big thunderstorms that Texas got. And we've just been doing a lot of private parties here and selling a lot of wine, drinking a lot of wine, talking about wine. So that's always fun. And I know you had some ideas of talking about why wine is so expensive, or what is the cost of wine? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so
I thought that would be kind of fun for us to talk about.
Yeah, you know, people ask me all the time, hey, why is a hamburger so expensive? Why is this so expensive? Well, so I take them through each component of the recipe or whatever's on the plate, and we don't really think about that in terms of beer, wine, and spirits, right? We think mostly of it's got to just be the name or the limited production or the excess of production, or maybe it's just not a good wine. But it has a lot to do with there are so many components. So let's go through each one. I mean, what would be the first thing that we're going to look at when we're thinking about the overall cost of wine?
Well, I was thinking about what the first thing is the cost of the grapes, the people that have to make it. So there's different costs for different grapes, obviously, and just like you think about cabs, you always think about Cabernet Sauvignon as being more expensive because it's a grape that's more expensive to grow. It's a more expensive grape, and they just make these big, like we've talked about this in the past, these big, super rich, deep, wines that take more time to make and to ferment and in the cask. So they're going to be obviously more expensive. And then we think about white wines, especially in my wine bar. I do wine flights. Well, we charge a little bit more for a red wine flight over a white wine flight because white wines tend to be less expensive. They're less expensive to produce. They cost us a little less, so we can sell it for a little less. So I think grapes that are white, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, they're less expensive to produce and easier to turn into wine, faster, I should say, to turn into wine than the red. So the process maybe is a little less time constraint, so that the wine prices come down a little bit. And that's one of the things. That's one of the factors.
Well, so that's funny.
Other factors.
That's one of the things we don't always take into account, right? Now, I'm looking at the grape prices. Cabernet Sauvignon, which is one of the most expensive grapes, is on the high end. Typically, the high average is around $4.50, $4.48 per pound. And then if you're looking at the Cab Franc, which is, I believe, the most expensive, it's like $5.16. So yes, that's a factor, but the time factor, people don't think about the time factor. I mean, if it takes a long time for the fermentation process to occur, or in the case of champagne or other sparkling wines that are made in the same method, that takes time because you have the initial fermentation process, then you have the secondary fermentation in the bottle, and that's a component that people don't think about. And when I'm looking at the references we have. What's interesting is you threw in the people to make it, right? The labor. That's That's actually not touched upon. This is just the cost of the goods, the finished product, but without taking that into account. And
you're not taking into account all the people that work on it, how many people work in the vineyards, the winemakers, the growers, and then there's the bottling process. You've got so there. Depending on the packaging, some of the packaging is way more expensive. The labeling is more expensive. I was brought a bottle yesterday that was etched. The actual bottle is etched Well, that's going to be a lot more expensive than just putting a straight, plain label on the bottle. And, that's one of the costs right there. That's going to add onto a cost. So the more exclusive or expensive of the wine, look at the labels. Look how intricate are they, look at the kind of bottle it's in. Some of the cheaper wines are in kind of a cheaper, thinner glass bottle. Have you ever noticed that? Like some wines, they don't have the little foot in the bottom or whatever. They're flat. So just the process of that glass is another cost.
So do you remember
that we
what
don't think about?
Do you remember what that's called in the bottom of that little divot in the bottom of the bottle?
It's I always call it the foot. What is their actual name of it?
Well, I think it's called the punt. As in, like you pick the bottle up and you punted it, and it's got the foot. Like
you punt it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not why it's called that.
You're right. I think it is the punt. It might be right. I don't know, but I always call it the foot. So yeah, it's probably the punt.
Yeah, it's fun. So
funny.
Sometimes it's really small, right? It could be as small as your thumb, and sometimes it's really big, and it does matter. As a matter of fact, the more shallow, the punt, or in reverse, the deeper that is, the more expensive the bottle. And I
think it also, you want to have those for the ones, the more expensive wines do have that sediment sometimes, that extra, like we talked about with the stems and the skins and stuff. So there'll be a little bit of sediment. So I think the deeper the punt is, it's to catch that sediment at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
when you pour it.
Exactly. So and it also it keeps it from settling. It touches less of the wine, right? There's less surface area if it's around that outside, because you're sitting in a valley now that goes around the outside of the bottle instead of sitting flat on the bottom and affecting all the wine that touches the bottom of the bottle. And I think that's another reason. You talk about the packaging. We go back even further. I mean, there's other stuff besides the people, the packaging. Think about the cost of the fermentation barrel. Right, and if it's not done in a big steel tank like a lot of wines are done today, I was surprised at the cost per bottle of oaked wine, and it's like $2 to $5 per bottle.
Oaked wine, yep.
Yeah, so that's $600.
Yeah, because the French oak is so expensive.
Oh, I know, and it's $600.
We don't realize it.
Yep, $600 to $2,400 a barrel is the cost of one of those oak barrels.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the average is like $1,200 for a barrel.
That's about right.
And
yeah,
that's just for one.
It's crazy.
That's just for one.
Well, it's no wonder that they scrape them and reuse them, because you can't. They're so expensive. If you use them just once, I can't imagine what the ridiculous cost of wine would be. But yeah, because the American oak barrels are they're about half that. I think they're about $600 per barrel. And then it depends on if they're, if they're charred on the inside and all the other treatments that they have. But the minimum, I think, is $2 a bottle just for aging in a barrel. Some of them, I mean, it's up to $5, $6. I think $6 is about the highest. But the cap, think about that. Remember, we used to only have corks.
Right.
And then they went to the rubber corks. And
and now they're the twist off. So those are, people complain about those, but they actually work really, really well. And it is because there is a shortage of cork in the world that, a lot of the winemakers and some really nice wines are going to those twist offs. And you can understand, and it's partially the cost. The cost of the cork is really expensive.
Well, Caymus Conundrum was one of the first, larger. Caymus was one of the first larger houses with their Conundrum wine, their white blend, that went to a twist off on a more expensive bottle of wine. Mm-hmm. I mean, that wine used to be like $16 or $18. Now it's $30, whatever. And okay, personally, I don't think it's as good as it used to be, but it's not the twist off cap. It has nothing to do with that. You can actually find some bottles in the $25, $30, $40 price range that have that. And you're right, it's about the cork. It is. It takes so long for those trees to re-go that bark. I mean, and we use it now. They use it for everything now. Flooring, backing on walls. Actually, I used it to. As the fascia for a bar at a restaurant called Sovino that we built in Houston one time. And we had this very thin, it was used kind of like a wallpaper. It was beautiful, but expensive and difficult to work with. But it takes so long that they've come up with all these other. That's what we should do, Laura. $1 billion business idea.
What?
Look,
What?
Tom's smart, right?
You got it.
Your
What
husband,
is
Tom.
it?
The whole tax season's pretty much over, right? Okay, so we need to find a cost-effective material that we can use as a cork. All right, to replace. Everybody hates the screw cap, right? Because we're all wine snobs. No, man, I don't drink Mogan David, man.
Right.
I don't drink that. I don't drink that cheap stuff. I'm sorry. Did I don't even know where the accent came from. It kind of sounded like me after 4 or 5 bourbons.
I don't know. Well, I like to recycle all the old corks because we've been saving them, and that's the thing. We need to get into the business of recycling the corks to make new corks.
That's true because they can grind it up and they can grind them and repress them, can't they?
Yeah, I would think that they could. I feel like it's a waste to just to not do something with them. So yeah. We're going to have with my employees, we're having a spring challenge with all the corks that we saved. Everyone has to build a birdhouse with them, and they can design their own birdhouse.
That's very cool.
That will be kind of fun to put in our garden. To put in the garden. It'll be really fun.
All right, how are you going to treat those?
Back to what we're taught.
All right, I know I'm getting all technical.
I don't know yet. I'm not sure yet. We're going to let them be creative. They're young; they can be creative inventors. But back to the cost of wine, it's something you don't think about too, not just the production of it and how it's put together, but also how many hands touch your wine, meaning from the vineyard, they sell it to a distributor. A distributor sells it, like in your state, in Texas, I think it touches like 2 or 3 distributors before it gets to like a wine anywhere where you're going to sell it, like a shop or a restaurant or a bar. So everyone has their cost on there. So whatever that cost might be, because we don't think about that. In Arkansas here, I have to buy from a distributor. People think you can buy them straight from the vineyard, and we as consumers, we cannot. Single people can. You can sign up for their wine clubs and whatnot, but as an actual retail or restaurant, we can't buy it straight from the vineyard, which seems silly, but we do have all these laws where we have to buy them from a distributor.
Well, it prevents some unfair competition stuff, because if you have a bunch of money, you can buy it discounted from the manufacturer directly. There's all those those business guys in DC, they get involved, and they don't like that. They don't like that at all. But so let's go back to we were talking about the cost of the cost of so the capsule is that wrapper that goes on top of the cork to hold it in, or whatever your top is. Yep. But so if you have an inexpensive stopper capsule, maybe it could be rubber, it could be a twist off. You're talking like 10 cents a bottle. But when you have cork and a really nice, typically lead, they used to be lead. Now I think they're aluminum. The capsule, I mean, you're talking almost $2 per bottle. So that seems like
another cost.
That's so much money. And then you talk about labeling.
The labeling, and then some of these big houses are doing mass producing labels, so they have those labeling, conveyors, or what. Some of the small ones are doing it by hand. So, for instance, we did the same thing with our olive oil. So that's one of the same costs that we have to absorb as well, because we bottle our own olive oil, so we have to include the label, the cap, the foil. All those things are part of our actually bottling our olive oil, and that goes into the cost that the consumer has to pay. So that's, again, the same kind of thing.
So chefs are really cost conscious, right? That we're trained from day one. Pay attention to the pennies. Pay attention to the pennies. You never look for a lower quality. Well, okay, you should never look for a lower quality ingredient, but instead an ingredient that you could replace an expensive one with. That's still it's of good value, of good flavor, and of the same quality, right? We're always looking for that. So what I've noticed is a lot of my clients nowadays aren't actual restaurateurs, right? They're other business people, because I can look through every process, every invoice, tediously for hours, days, it doesn't matter, do the due diligence, and I can tell you where you're leaking money. And it's typically overlooked costs. 50% of what I find, seriously, 50% are overlooked costs in any business. And if you don't know your cost of goods, it's really hard to sell at the right price and get the margin you're looking for. People go, oh, we just sell market price, whatever the guy down the street's selling for. It's bad business. And these wineries, these vintners, or these vineyards have over the decades, they've had to really tighten controls. I mean, and we're not talking just the last few decades, over the last 100 years because of worldwide competition. But it could come down to even things like there's a great Ralph Steadman was a really great artist, and there's a great book called if I find it, I'll bring it up to you. It's called The Grapes of Ralph, and he did all these wonderful.
Oh, interesting.
He did these wonderful watercolors for as labels for all the big like Chateauneuf de Pape and all these huge labels in France, California, and all over the world, but it might cost $10 or $15 or $20 or $30,000 to commission him to do a label. And now you think about, okay, I know that sounds crazy. It's a lot of money. It is, and even if it's spread out over 30,000 bottles, it's still, or maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's 50,000 or 100,000 bottles. That's still, 30 cents a label, in addition to the cost of the quality of the label and placing the label on the bottle. So it's fascinating to me when we start looking at the cost of what anything truly costs. People say, oh, if I buy local and organic, it's more expensive. Well, maybe. But there's a reason, right? Because that produce.
There is a reason. We really try to be local too. And that is, like you said, with the artists. I mean, the uniqueness. Okay, when we're talking wine, people do look at labels. Like, labels are seriously important, because if they don't have a good label, your wine could be looked over. It's like a book jacket. It has to draw you in, not just the name. Like some name, because there's so many new vineyards that people haven't heard of quite yet, and they're up and coming. If they have an exciting label, people are going to go gravitate toward it and like, oh, I might try that. That might be something I like. Because if they like the label, I mean, it's just like when we handle fruit in the supermarket. We want to look at it, we want to smell it. It looks good, we buy it. I think it goes along hand in hand. So maybe sometimes it's worthy to have an expensive label.
Well, and what's cool is I used to take, if you soak your wine bottle in a little soapy water or warm water even, that glue comes off the back pretty easily if it's a quality bottle typically, and the higher quality labels, and you save those. You can make collages or it's really, and some of them are so beautiful, or they're so old, right? That label is iconic in the industry, and the fact that we're able to have a bottle of that wine. Now, you don't want to keep the bottle, right? Because you run out of room. You can put so many on the top of the fridge or the shelf above the mantle. And so the labels are good.
You want to keep them.
And you can keep the labels. I've seen people scrapbook them, actually. As corny as that sounds.
I actually have one, Patrick.
No, I think it's cool.
I actually have one.
That's awesome.
I do it too, or have done it, Yeah, because, you have that special bottle of wine that I may not get this again. I want to save it. I want to remember it. I want to write about it. So that's important.
It is important. Yeah, well, and especially
that's a neat thing to do.
Well, and also, look, we all want to share our passion with someone else. That's why I chose this platform eventually. I don't know how I got here, exactly where it started, but, a chef, you can affect so many people at one restaurant, maybe 2-3 restaurants. You're a regional chain or a local powerhouse. You can affect, 10,000 people a year, 15, 20,000. But then so consulting, I thought, consulting impact more people and increase or better the dining experience and,
right.
Educate the guest. And then I was like, what if I had a nationwide or worldwide platform? I could at the same time educate.
There you go.
Yeah. And so, but that's what we do. You and Tom share your passion for wine and all aspects of the business with the olive oil and olive oils, many, by the way. And I'm telling you, we cannot understate the importance of a good vinegar, by the way. We can't.
That is true.
So, look, wine can be expensive. There's a lot of reasons. I'll post the link. You can look it up, okay? We can let that one go. But, we all think we can take the leftover wine and turn it into vinegar. It really doesn't work that way. You ever try to do that?
Yeah, Yes, I have, and it really doesn't come out the way you think it's going to come out.
No, no,
You know?
it just ends up as sour wine.
It's different. You know, it really is. It's a different process. And, you know, vinegars are just so good all on their own. So yeah, when wine spoils, it spoils.
So I want to ask you about that because you guys have, how many olive oils on average do you have there at any given time, and how many vinegars?
You know, we have about a dozen of each, give or take. So, you know, because we're such a small town and a small shop, we really like to rotate through it and keep it as fresh as possible. So I try not to have too many because, you know, there's always one that's not the most popular. So we try to rotate them through so that we don't have that, you know, on the shelf for very long. So we keep it right about a dozen each, and that seems to work for us.
So real quick, you know, you touched on another point. As a chef, people don't think about your oil that's been sitting in the cabinet for like 3 years underneath the heat of the range, your countersunk range top, cooktop. That goes okay. Yep. One of my friends, Eric, he hates this. It's rancid. He goes, rancid. In my house, you say, honey, is that rotten?
Yeah, throw it away.
I'm like, but rancid, it's
throw it away, please.
And you'll know when you get something fried in rancid oil or cooked or finished with it has that chemical taste. It tastes like cottonseed oil smells. It's the
and it smells.
It's awful, and you'll know when you open the bottle. But you know, really, that you can't keep that oil that long. Once you open it, it starts to oxidize, and if it's a warm place, it'll start to change color. It's terrible. So that's a good point. Again, waste. You don't want any waste. But so what? Have you had anything really cool come through as far as vinegars and oils go? Because I loved making dressings with what you had. Every week I would go through.
I know, I love it too.
It was awesome. And it's so simple to make dressings.
Okay, so I wanted to say one thing about the temperature of oils. Really, the optimal temperature is about 65 to 68. You don't want it to be hot, warm, like for storage. And then fresh olive oil, hopefully your listeners, we're all buying fresh, which means a store like mine, or at least if you're going to read, look at the labels and the markets and make sure, see when it's harvested. But the oils last about 18 months. That's it from fresh. So if it's already 12 months old, you got 6 months. You know, so you need to be using it. Use it. Don't keep it. And if it's old, throw it away.
Yeah,
but what's good? Right now, I have the pear ginger wasabi balsamic that I just love. I love using it for stir fries and vegetables and stuff. It's really awesome. That pear, and it's not spicy. It sounds like it's spicy because it has the wasabi. And I heard you speaking Japanese, so you know all about wasabi, but it's very mild as far as that taste. You taste more of the pear ginger, and it's good.
I like to make you laugh, Laura. You know, you and Tom are such jovial, just such friendly, happy people. It's awesome. All right, so that's your favorite. That's your favorite on the vinegar side right now. What really cool, because you have the most amazing variety of olive oils. You have anything that's unique, something cool? Any of the chefs come in to get anything? Is Luke using anything next door?
Well, Luke was using my Mission for a while, but I was actually selling, and believe it or not, I have a bacon olive oil, and I was selling it to Rob Nelson at Tusk and Trotter, and he was doing some crazy, fun vegetable with it because that happens to be, you know, his restaurant is Tusk and Trotter, so it's pork-based, different, you know, farm-to-table stuff. So he absolutely loved the bacon olive oil. And it's really smoky, and it's great for like Brussels sprouts. If you're going to, you know, roast some Brussels sprouts or saute some onions in it. The bacon is really kind of unique and different. And the other one that I truly love and use all the time is jalapeno. And I don't know, you're in Texas. Come on, the Texans probably love that jalapeno taste. It is so fresh. It's
absolutely.
Awesome to make your own salsa with it. You can, you know, I use it for everything. I even make salad dressing with it. It's delicious.
All right, so
with the Kaffir lime vinegar.
I got to go back to the bacon for a second because typically, I would say everything's over bacon flavored ice cream, bacon this, bacon that. But in this case, because bacon typically, like bacon grease, is a natural oil you would use in the past, but we're trying to healthify things, right? We want it a little lighter, a little better.
Right.
With the flavor. I can at least understand that. And if anybody's going to use that correctly, it's going to be Rob, because I believe, was Rob not James Beard nominee? I know he's been to the James Beard house to present, because you can watch live on the camera when they do those dinners. If you've never done that, folks, the James Beard house, James Beard he actually had a TV show on public television way back when, before Julia Childs even. He set the standard for food in this country. Look him up, read about him. Great story. But the James Beard Foundation, which, they select Chef of the Year, regional, overall best restaurant, so on and so forth. The James Beard House, everyone goes there and does their presentations. It's very cool. You can watch live in the kitchen while they're plating up. There's a lot of standing around, and then all of a sudden it's crazy, like people flying around. It's fantastic. It's interesting. It's fascinating, especially in this foodie culture that we live in today. Educate yourselves. Check it out, and find out what these chefs have to go through to make it to this level and be nominated. So, all right, Laura, I got about a minute left. Anything else you want to add in? Tom survived. He didn't lose any more hair over a tax season. That poor guy.
No, and we're moving into our new home, and so you need to come out and visit soon. We have our guest rooms all set up. So, and you can taste some of the new olive oils that we have and some new wine.
Woohoo!
Come to Arkansas.
Yeah, I really do miss it up there. It's a great time of year to be up there. Mountain biking's just starting. Mud season's done. You didn't get you got a little snow this year, but hey, thanks again, Laura.
Yeah.
Again, Wine Down Wednesday. This is Laura Geen from Ramo de Olivo in Bentonville, Arkansas. We will talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Well, folks, fourth course is done. Yeah, dessert, wine. Hey, wine goes with everything. I know they say bubbles, but wine goes with everything. You might as well call it dessert. Man, that's burned through another 2 hours today. If you didn't catch the whole show, check us out on Spreaker. You can check the podcast. You can go back watch it'll look like a live video to you because you haven't seen it yet. Go back to Spoony Radio's Facebook page. Again, I'm Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro. Man, signing off. It's already Wednesday. Remember, be kind to yourself. You are what you eat. We'll talk to you tomorrow.